Good day. I am Peter Rony. I live in Blacksburg, and it is a rainy morning on Sunday, September 27. The title of this somewhat longer duration video is Deceptive Claims by the Museum Enterprise. I don't know if this is a new phrase for you, but I've been using it for at least one or two videos. The so-called Floyd County Historical Bugbook or Bugbook Historical Computer Museum is not just a bricks and mortar museum. It's something that is more. You know, you don't just go into the museum, look at the microcomputers, come out and say, "Oh, wasn't that wonderful?" No, it's not just that. You enter the museum, and at least you learn that there's such a thing. And then if you go to the internet, you observe, if you're interested, that there are blogs and YouTube videos and audio tracks and a Wikipedia story, which apparently Wikipedia doesn't like, and gosh knows what else. So it's not just a room, it's an enterprise. A room plus all sorts of internet thingies. Okay, I've waited long enough on this first slide that it should become a thumbnail. And I like these thumbnails. They all have a consistency. Well, I succeeded in downloading one of the curator's YouTube videos, and I had it on my desktop, and I was able to play at will the WMV file. I must say that I was a bit dismayed by what I heard. Here is the beginning of the video file. And before I continue, I need to give you a timeline. Even though the name Bugbook did not exist in 1973, my participation in activities that finally led to the Bugbooks started in 1973, when my department, Chemical Engineering, engaged in a curriculum revision. When we were doing that, I had no idea that there was some guy named David Larsen on campus. And I wrote a laboratory workbook on digital electronics in January, and we started teaching it in February 1974. John Titus, a graduate student in the Department of Chemistry, didn't join us until August 1974. And here I show items 10, 11, 12 in a bill of complaint that my lawyer wrote in May 1980. So that's the timeline. Let me continue. Well, in this video, right at the beginning, I see this poster. I captured it. It's very hard to see here, and when I printed it out, it was very dark. So what I have done is retype all the entries into PowerPoint, and here are the retyped dates. Okay, most of this material is sort of innocuous. Of course, I remember the dates, and here I misspelled Steve. But the third bullet really attracted my attention. And you can all understand that I was doing the pre-Bugbook work before I met Larsen, and this item, started microcomputer history, caught my attention. This is ridiculous, absurd, but it led me to create this YouTube video. So let me start picking it apart. 1974 Bugbooks. Well, they were published in August 1974. I wrote them. And the only thing I had in mind was teaching digital electronics. That's all. And certainly, during 1974, I had no plan to write anything about microcomputers. Well, okay, that's my critique of the date. Now let me go to 3 words. Started microcomputer history. When I read them, I says, what the hell was Larsen thinking about when he made this stupid statement? Well, Larsen isn't stupid, but so my explanation is he's trying to garner credit before people who are uninformed and have no information to challenge this statement. But I do. It is stupid, and it's worse than disappointing. It's obnoxious. And let me get back to 1974, to January 1974, a month when I wrote a digital electronics workbook for 15 chemical engineering students who started to use the workbook in February 1974. Again, my mindset was on digital electronics. That's all I wanted to teach to my engineering students. So in summary, with this group of 3 slides, this is Deception of the Public by the self-appointed curator. Well, he's no curator, he's a deceiver. And the fact that this information is now within his museum room is just unprofessional. And that's putting it mildly. So let me now, as the title of this slide, put this phrase, this bullet item here, and let me give you some more of the early history. How did I get into microcomputers? The answer is that John Titus, an outstanding developer of microcomputers, created a computer trainer that became called the MD-1. And he, I think he finished the design probably in spring 1975. And the trainer was marketed immediately by E&L Instruments, and they needed a workbook for community colleges, and the workbook became Bugbook 3, and I wrote it during the entire summer 1974. I'm sorry, 75. I really liked the MD1 microcomputer because I learned what a computer was all about by using it. It was my first opportunity to sort of look inside a computer and learn just how interesting it worked. And I certainly tell you that in the summer I was fascinated by what I learned. And where did I write this book? On my office desk, at my home, on the upper floor, sort of a baby room, and Blacksburg, Virginia. I was all alone while I wrote this book, and I spent usually more than 8 hours a summer day working on the book. Well, I didn't learn everything I needed to learn. I didn't understand interrupts. So John Titus, with the assistance of Chip Wilson, created Unit 8 in Bugbook 3. I have not forgotten that. That unit really made Bugbook 3 a complete programming and interfacing book. Well, on the YouTube video of his tour of his museum, Larsen makes a big point of Bugbook 3. He shows it on camera, says it was the first blah 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 something, which I knew, which I still know. And then what he claims is that Peter Rony, David Larsen, and John Titus produced Bugbook 3. Well, he wasn't an author, so he's not a liar on camera, I hope. So he comes up with a weasel word, produce. This is sort of a ridiculous word. And he's relying on his ability to bamboozle the uninformed, who may not understand the difference between produce and write. Okay, well, I've talked about the video. Let me give you some conclusions. In 1974, Bugbooks 1 and 2 had nothing to do with microcomputer history. They had everything to do with digital electronics education. And so in 1974, I had nothing to do with microcomputer history. Zero. But John Titus did have an important impact on microcomputer history, and he's remembered for that. What's interesting here is David Larsen makes no claim that both he and John Titus produced the MD1 microcomputer trainer. Third bullet, I wrote all 6 books in my office at home, and Larsen didn't help. In fact, he wasn't interested in proofreading my pages. And as Larsen does note in his video, Bugbook 3 was the first laboratory textbook on 8080A interfacing and programming. Well, Bugbook 3 certainly didn't start microcomputer history. Well, David Larsen, who likes to call himself a mastermind, said on the following, on an audio that for which I made a transcript, quote, "You see, Bugbooks 1 and 2 were written by Professor Rony, and myself." So while he said, he quickly thought that he better include himself as one of the writers. Well, this is false. And here's that spectacular word, publisher. This was from the YouTube video. And at the very beginning, to quote, he said, "The museum started years ago with the publishing of Bugbooks 1 and 2 by Professor Rony and myself in digital electronics." Here we have the words publisher, not co-authoring. Behold. Okay, here is a paragraph, in fact the only paragraph on Bugbooks in a Wikipedia story about the Bugbook Historical Computer Museum. This paragraph is from the July 1st, 2015 version of the Wikipedia story. He mentions a team. Well, we were not a team, certainly not a team in the writing of any of my Bugbooks. And then he said, ungraciously, "Professor Rony typed all the manuscripts." Yet, if we were a team, what the hell did David Larsen do? And then he transitions to the Blacksburg Continuing Education series, which he likes to do in his museum. Well, I'm not really known to be a cusser, and of course, as an engineering faculty member, such a thing would be inappropriate in the 1970s, in fact, at any time. And maybe today they call such words politically incorrect. Well, in the 70s, they were morally incorrect. This is the last slide of a pretty long YouTube video, so I will say goodbye and thank you for bearing with me to the very end. Good day.